Alright guys, I know you've been asking for it, so te gen un pile mauvais signal, sont pas capable vraiment capable de communiquer avec nous et pour me donner tout détail là, mais nous gagnons en exclusivité Avoka Guy Philippe là qui est avec nous là, qui est live avec nous et pour nous capable de gagner toute dernière détail, toute information. Et nous devons faire ça en exclusivité avec nous parce que il y a un pile rumeur qui a couru, il y a un pile parole qui a couru et des fois il y a un pile là et tout. Pas de possibilité, il y a des questions pour me déposer, je connais quelqu'un pile de journalistes qui t'a posé des questions. So I wanted to make sure that I have that one-on-one so you guys can hear it for yourself, and of course I will do the translation into Creole for you later, but I wanted to have that closure so we can understand better the case. Maybe from the beginning to where we are right now, there are a couple of things that you may not hear today, maybe in the near future. I wanted to tackle that as well. So Ms. Gabozanic, thank you so much once again for being here. I know now you dry, it was raining heavily. Give us a summary of what happened today inside of the courtroom. There was the last day for the sentence to be pronounced for Mr. Philippe.
Well, everything, as I said previously, everything went according to the plan. He got 108 months, which was the lower end of the guidelines. The guidelines were between 108 to 135 months. We asked the judge for 108. The judge agreed to give him 108 months, which is 9 years. According to my calculations, he'll do about 7 years or so. He gets credit time served for whatever he's done. He also does about 85% of the sentence, so he'll be out in about 7 years or so. And that's about it.
So he will be out in about 7 years, although he has 9 years for the sentence because of the 15% bracket that we have in the justice system. If you behave well in jail, if you do community service.
Everybody gets it. You don't do any community service. No, everybody gets it. Your sentence is what it is. They cut it down. It's called gain time. Federal sentences. Federal prisoners get 85% of their sentence. And you know, some other people who are citizens will, for example, get certain programs. They could do halfway houses, so their sentences would be even lower. Mr. Philippe will do about 85% of the sentence, will get credit time for whatever he served already, so it'll be about 7 years altogether.
I know, guys, we're in a pretty loud area. We're on top of the roof right now. I'm just gonna ask Ms. Bozanic to speak a bit louder for you guys so you can hear it.
Turn it this way?
Fine.
No, turn the camera the other way. So.
Oh, it'll be better the other way? Okay, let me flip it the other way. Yeah, more.
Because you can hear it.
There we go. Stay on. So again, we're live in both faces. It will be better. So we do. We'll do outside since it's a bit loud in here, so we can have both ways. So I'll be doing this, so you have a better view of how it is. There you go. So now we were talking about the 9 years, but however he will spend 7 firm years in prison. So after 7 years, he technically gonna be out.
Yes, that's the plan.
There's a $100 that they mentioned inside of the courtroom that he will have to pay. What about that one?
There's a mandatory cost of $100 per count. Every single person has to pay it, so that's standard. He had 3 counts, he only pled to 1, so there's a $100 cost. That's about it.
They dropped the count 1 and count 3. It's
yes.
Only count 2. What was count 1 and count 3?
Count 1 was the trafficking count. Count 3 was also money laundering, and count 2 was money laundering.
So now he's only charged with count 2, which is money laundering.
Correct.
There's before we go to the details of some other things, there is a $1.5 million they are talking about that he probably need to give back, and because of some cases. Give me some clarity into that. What is that about?
Okay, $105 million is a guideline. We have agreed to a $105 million judgment because we wanted to get, obviously, the sentence that we got. And when you negotiate a plea, you have to agree to a certain guideline. That doesn't mean that Mr. Philippe ended up with with 1.5 million in his pocket. That's not what it means. It means that whatever the evidence the government had and taking some projections of what somebody would make in a conspiracy like this that includes other people and whatever, those are the projections. There's no evidence that $1.5 million went through his account, and that's not what we mean when we agree to a $1.5 million judgment. As you could hear in the sentencing, there were mention of other people who had money laundering charges and what they got. And the way the money laundering statute works is it goes on the amount of loss. So, for example, there was a name mentioned of somebody who
that was Oriel Jean and Lucien.
Whatever, you know, and they.
And these are people, just to not to cut you, but
I just don't want to get into it. I'm very well aware of who they are, but their amounts of loss were lower. They were like 400,000. Therefore, their sentence was a little lower. So, in order for us to get to a certain amount of a sentence, because you all know that he was facing life in prison, and we know that the government wasn't willing to just let him walk free. At some point, he was facing 15 years to life, and there were different numbers being thrown around. So in order to get to a number that worked for everybody, we had to obviously agree to certain guidelines. In this case, it happened to be a 1.5 million guideline that made us get to a number of 108 to 135 months, and we agreed to a money judgment. And it's an estimate of what somebody would have made based on the evidence in the case. It comes from the government. At the end of the day, I don't really care what the number is, as long as I get to a sentence that I want to get to, and that's what happens. So
technically, Guy Philippe the English part, would spend 7 years in prison, will have to pay $100, and after that time, he has to surrender to the immigration custom borders in order to get deported back to Haiti.
That part, there's a standard speech that the judge gives in every single sentencing, because that's what they have to do. As far as the immigration, Mr. Philippe is not a citizen of the United States, does not want to stay in the United States, and he will obviously go back to Haiti. As part of the sentence, the judge had to say that he has to surrender, but obviously when his sentence is up, he will go back to Haiti.
All right, I'm going to ask you that question in English, but I want to ask you in Creole first and translate that into English. Dans séance là, Guy Philippe yo te demandé, avocat te demandé pour juge là te demandé est-ce que le bon parole que le besoin dit, il dit non que le pas veut dire rien. During the
I understood
hearing.
All that.
Really? Oh my God, that is so good. So
I'm joking.
So Guy Philippe refused to make any statement inside of the courtroom when the judge asked him to do so. Why do you think he decided to?
Well, I don't think I know. I spoke to him yesterday and told him to not make any statements, because we wanted to make sure his sentencing goes smooth. Mr. Philippe will have plenty of opportunities to make a statement, and I can't wait for him to make a statement, and I know he wants to talk, but it just wasn't the right time. And as you could see when he was in the sentencing, he kind of looked at me, because when the judge asked him, do you want to make any statement, I just said no. And he knows not to say anything. There's nothing that he needs to say. He doesn't have to say anything. The United States Constitution tells you don't have to say anything, and that's why he has lawyers. So we said whatever we needed to say, and
you've been in the case since day one. Do you think it's a victory for you having him sentenced for just nine years?
That's a tricky question. It's not a victory in a sense, because I feel that a very good man is going to do a lot of time in prison. So in that sense, it's not a victory, because I always wanted to go to trial, and I always wanted to prove Mr. Philippe's innocence, and I always believed in him. However, there are certain things that happened, and there are certain things that were presented that after we all kind of sat down together, we figured it was in his best interest to plead guilty, considering the sentence or the plea that he was offered. At the end of the day, going to trial in the United States, basically you have 12 jurors listening to your story. They're not going to be Haitian jurors. They're not going to be people that know Mr. Philippe. They're going to be just some people randomly selected. They could be white, black, whatever, yellow, they have nothing or no knowledge of Mr. Philippe, and they're going to look at him as, when the government gets up and says, this man trafficked all these drugs, and this man did this. And on top of that, there were different names and different witnesses that were going to testify against Mr. Philippe, and say that he did certain things. Now, the way the justice system works in the United States is, sometimes you catch somebody on video, sometimes there are different types of evidence you can have, and then sometimes people can come and say, yeah, I used to traffic drugs with them, we split the money, we did this and we did that. So when you have 6, 7, 8 people repeat the same thing, the question is, is the jury going to believe it? And considering that he was facing life in prison, and considering there were some transactions in his bank account, which Mr. Philippe will explain at some point, I don't want to get into that, but there were certain transactions we thought that it could maybe appear to the jury that maybe he had something to do with it. And sometimes when the jury is kind of in between and they think, hey, maybe they don't really know what you're facing. They have no idea, and they're not, we can't tell them that he's facing life in prison. So they may say, oh, okay, you're guilty. Sometimes I've heard jurors afterwards say, hey, he looked guilty as soon as I saw him, or, I wasn't going to convict him no matter what. You never know how it goes. Our job as attorneys is to go to trial and tell our client what to do, whether to take a plea. Sometimes when you get a plea offer that is just too good to refuse, you tell them, listen, what's in your best interest. And in this case, this was the lowest sentence that could have been. The offer at the beginning was 15 years. Well, his guidelines were around 15 years, obviously. It would be up to the judge. We went down to 9, and that was a big, big difference. And I thought, Alan thought, and Mr. Philippe agreed with us that it is probably in his best interest to plead guilty. But, there's a lot of other stuff that happened. And, I didn't want to talk about it before, and I'm still kind of...
There are a lot of things that probably we know that we cannot talk about yet on camera. But let's go a bit about the some of the witnesses. You say that some of them, they were ready to do that. Were they people from Haiti? Were there people that we heard names of, like a former driver who used to sign checks for Mr. Philippe, was also on the list to testify. We don't know.
I don't know who the former driver is.
You had access to at least some of the witnesses, right?
I had access. We did get a witness list. I'm not going to talk about the names of the witnesses or who was on the witness list. I know some of those names. I know for a fact that certain people got reduction in their sentence, and that's normal. If they cooperate or if they're willing to testify, they get a reduction and they walk home. So those people, whether they were in prison, they're free in Haiti. And that's what their job was, to come and say, hey, I did this with Mr. Philippe. Now, whether they did it or not, whether they really knew the information or if they were just lying and convinced the government, I don't know. I am pretty positive that certain names on that list were people that Mr. Philippe didn't even know. So I believe Mr. Philippe 100%. I believe, and I don't believe clients all the time when they tell me everything. I'm always kind of, questioning. But there are certain things that Mr. Philippe said, and I absolutely believe him 100%. But at the end of the day, I don't know who the driver is. I don't know if you know the name, because everybody's talking about some driver. There was no driver. It had nothing to do with his decision to plead guilty. There were other people. I don't think there were ever drivers. But I have no idea who you're talking about. So I think that rumor is a rumor, and
I'm glad at least you have your part of it, your take on it, so we know.
Listen, a lot of people will spread rumors because they want to pretend like they know something. There was no way for anybody to know anything about the case aside from me, Alan Ross, who is the second attorney in this case, and Mr. Philippe, because no one else was present for our interviews. So everything else that you heard was a complete lie unless it came out of our mouths, which it didn't. So everybody else speculating and then people reading it, it may be for the benefit of them, I don't know, making money. I don't know what the reason is, but I've heard rumors, and I just, I've heard so many rumors that it doesn't even make sense to address them.
Talking more about rumors in Haiti, there's you heard it, and I called you several times to talk about that. There's a famous list. Oh my God, Guy Philippe, has spoken. He gave a list of names. Some people in politics, some people in the government, former so and so. What can you tell us? I've been asking you that question several times, but let me ask you that question again. What is going on with that list that people are talking about?
If there was a list, I would get the list and hand it over to the prosecutor. I can tell you that I never handed the list to the prosecutor. Mr. Philippe never met with the government, never cooperated, and whatever rumors people are coming up with, I have no idea where they would come up with the list, because if there was a list, I would definitely know about the list. So I've addressed this rumor many times. I'm kind of even tired of talking about it. At the end of the day, even if Mr. Philippe was willing to produce names such as Aristide, it's been so long, and if there are people who deserve to be in prison, I agree. Okay, and there are people who I would love to see in prison. However, it's been such a long time that the statute of limitation expired. Could he go and give information to Aristide? Maybe, but it's just not the route he took. He could have.
Yeah.
He didn't.
But he's not a good friend of Aristide.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I mentioned that name. Could he have done it? Yes, but it's been such a long time. He didn't take that route. First of all, Mr. Philippe is an honorable person, and he is not a snitch. And I will say that once, and I will say it again until my mouth is dry.
Yeah.
He's not a snitch, and he is a respectable person, and he has certain morals. So there are certain people who are okay with snitching and making up stuff and lying, whether they're lying or not, whatever. I think all the snitches, 70% of whatever comes out of their mouth is a lie because they're trying to reduce their sentence. However, that's not Mr. Philippe. If Mr. Philippe was talking, he wouldn't be doing all this time. He would be probably out much sooner. So yes, there are people who were doing stuff that I know of. I know a lot of people who were doing stuff, but that's not on me. That's on Mr. Philippe, whether he wants to go and drop certain names. We'll see.
But you said there's a huge difference between could and had the information. So obviously, if he could, he chose not to, right? But is that supposed to be that he may know also things that he could have,
Mr. Philippe is a public person in Haiti. Of course, he knows
and
stuff.
a political figure.
I mean, I know stuff just from hearing stuff and representing Haitian people, or hearing things. Mr. Philippe. Everybody knows stuff. Whether you go and spin it a certain way and tell people, that's a different story. I can just tell you that, it's kind of like a moot point. We keep talking about it, and people will think
clarifying the air and let people see this is the cloud.
I wish that Mr. Philippe reduced the sentence and did that, because I want him to do the least amount of time, but that's not the type of a person he is.
And there's nothing right now that I can do to reduce his sentence more than what he has.
Changing guidelines, possibly. You never know. Sometimes the Congress will issue certain amendments and they can be retroactive, so that could change his sentence. Many things can happen. There are people who have reduced sentences for various reasons. Normally, it's cooperation. So normally, if you see somebody that was doing 20 years in prison and now is on the streets of Haiti, they probably cooperated, but
Let's talk a bit about, since you talk about Haiti and things going on, there's I haven't read it yet, but there's a book about Philippe. Do you think that also describes who Philippe really is?
I have never read it.
Have you heard about the book?
I have been asked about the book. I have never read any parts of the book.
Have you never been contacted to give your version on?
Absolutely not. I don't even know who wrote it. I don't know what the book is about. Somebody told me that they're talking about why he took a plea, and that's anything that is written in the book about why he took a plea would have been a complete fabrication, because the only people who know why he took a plea are Mr. Philippe, myself, and Alan Ross, and we didn't talk to anybody who wrote any kind of book. So I just don't even think that deserves any comments. I just can't comment on it because I haven't read it, and even if I got the book, I don't think it's in English. So
yeah. Have you get in touch with some people from the media in Haiti? I know that you're monitoring different interviews as well of what's going on the news and stuff. Anybody from the news contacted you, at least to get the source, to know exactly what is going on instead of giving some information? What is your take on how they handle the case on that particular angle?
I'm not understanding your question right now.
Yeah. About the media in Haiti, the way they're covering the news, have they been contacted you to ask you for it?
I've received certain phone calls. I can't really tell you the names of people that I spoke to. Maybe I've received 3 or 4 phone calls, and most of the times whenever I talk, I think they're recorded. So I don't remember talking to anybody that wasn't recorded.
Yes.
I just don't recall. I haven't been talking to the media because the case was open and I didn't really want to talk too much. I gave a phone interview to a New York station. That was a while ago. That was right after he took a plea with Valerio. And aside from that, I don't remember talking to anybody. I spoke to one person right on that day, but between then and now, no, I haven't been talking to anybody.
It's a very fresh case. We're still going to have a lot to go, and we have other things to do for the day. I don't want to keep you for too long. But let me ask you, how is his family going? I haven't seen his wife there. I haven't seen anybody from his family inside of the courtroom. You probably have, how they feeling? How is it mentally for them?
As well as anybody can be. I mean, everybody understands that this is what needed to happen, and that the best case scenario was 108 months. I have texted his family and let him know what the sentence is, and they're okay.
And many in Haiti, because he's a political figure, they ask questions like so many times about the same thing. Did he ever talk to you about his political ambition for Haiti? Is it something that he's also thinking that, you know what, I may go back to Haiti and run again, eventually for a senator or for a president, who knows?
I think that Mr. Philippe is a great politician, great person, and you know, I can't even stress enough how much I like Mr. Philippe and respect him. So if he was to run again, if he was able to run again, I think that would be great. I don't know what the Haitian laws are. I don't know what the Haitian laws will be when he gets out. You know, I wish him good luck. I hope he's able to run again. I think he is a person that you don't run into every day, and there are not that many people who have morals and their own personalities the way he is. So I really hope that he is able to do it. I can't really comment, you know, whether he's going to be able to run and whether he will run. That's something that he will have to take as we go. So, you know, we'll see.
This is definitely the last question. Many people keep asking me that. While he's in jail, has he received any visit from any members of the government, since he was also helping the current president of Haiti during the campaign? Anybody from the government has visited him inside of these cells, from the current government of Haiti?
Not that I know of. You know, I don't check his visitor list, but I do talk to him, and I'm not aware of anybody. Not everybody can visit him. You know, it's not like you can just walk in and visit him. You have to be on the list. Usually it's family, but you know, I don't think that I just not something that I really thought of talking to him about, but.
Well, you did a great job. Thank you so much. I know we're still going to talk more, but I wanted to have you right on spot to talk more about that. Thank you so much. All right, guys, thank you. I know that the interview was in English, so I will do my best maybe to do another live. Then we can talk more about the Creole version. Je connais qu'il y a un pile dans nous et peut-être pas comprendre anglais et interview a été en anglais seulement qu'elle était faite. M'a fait possible moi peut-être jeudi ou bien demain, tout dépend de l'homme guetam que doit faire une autre session avec nous en créole pour me capable de nous détails qui sorti détails de interview ça que me fait réaliser avec Avoka Guy Philippe, l'avocat principal dans ça qui c'est Zelga Bozanic, et puis tu as tout Alain qui est dans caisse là. Alright guys, so merci en pile à nous tous qui t'a suivi, merci à tous les commentaires et n'a croisé Pita, hein, continuez prier pour nous, prier pour Haïti, Haïti besoin de nous en pile. Bye bye.